What would be your approach to approving or disapproving charter clusters? What is your experience with charter schools in DeKalb? Which school districts in the country would you consider to be excellent models? Let's start on this end, please.
As anybody who's read anything about me knows, I've been a strong supporter of change within our county school district for quite some time. And yes, that absolutely includes charters. Like Michael, I am a proud parent of a student at a charter school. I've watched firsthand as my kindergartner at the museum school has gone from the 44th percentile in math to the 95th over a year, and the 62nd to the 89th in reading. And so, and then at the same time, I see we have 20 children in each class with not just a teacher, but 2 paraprofessionals as well. And they have the same funding that every other school in DeKalb County does. And they've been able to do very, very well with those funds. So, certainly in a number of cases, I have been in support of charters and will continue to be supportive as well. In terms of the process and what I would look for in a charter application, I think the main thing is parental involvement and support from community stakeholders. That's been a major issue, as well as the sophistication level and the effort that's been put in the application. We've had a number of those, the original charter cluster being one of them, where there has been a significant amount of effort, and I feel like it's certainly an instance where it's been beneficial to all the students in the county. My opponents disagree with that, but that's what I feel. In terms of model systems throughout the country, pick one. When you're at the bottom, there's a lot to choose from, but there are quite a number of systems nationwide that we should consider.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, I have to say that we're not at the bottom. So I don't know why you would assume that we're at the bottom. And I don't know if I want you to represent me thinking that we're at the bottom.
Thank you.
So, will I approve the charter cluster? It's not about me approving the charter cluster. It is about, is that charter cluster serving the best interests of the public? And that's what we validated on. So, my opponent says that he would definitely approve the charter cluster. Why can't go in there with that opinion? Because I have to be open-minded. I have to be impartial, because when I go in, I cannot have made my mind up, because there's going to be evidence that comes out during the proceeding that I'm going to have to take in order to make my decision. So, as far as my experience with charter schools, my son goes to DeKalb County Public Charter School. I would not say that charter school is better than traditional school. I would say that parental engagement makes any school. It's not the building, but it's what's going on inside the building that makes the school. So we have to remember that. If you look at statistics, even now charter systems are actually drafting about the same as our charter schools. And some great examples of that would be, I have the city of Decatur. We don't have to go around the country to look at it. We look at the city of Decatur. Also, Fulton County, we can take a look at them. And we also can take a look, I think it's Barlow County, that has a charter system. Thank you.
Thank you. The school board votes on the fiscal year budget as presented by the superintendent. How will you approach the budgetary process, and what are your funding priorities? How will you share your ideas with the superintendent? Again, we'll start on this end.
I budget for a living, so I think in terms of approaching budget, you need to check out each line item. And I feel like, yes, there are a lot of line items there, and there's a lot of homework to do, just like when we're talking about evaluating a charter cluster or any sort of petition. There's a lot of homework to be done so that you can have a pretty good idea of how you're going to vote before you show up. Because if you wait and new information comes out and you don't have done all your homework, and you haven't met with those people and you haven't engaged, then it's going to be much harder to make an informed decision. And in terms of, I think it's the same way in the budget. If someone's going over a $1.25 billion budget and you show up that night and you're reviewing the budget, of course you're not going to be informed. Of course information on, to figure out all those line items. And with regards to addressing the superintendent, having a conversation with the superintendent, I'm a big fan of sitting down with anyone who's willing to talk. I tried to reach out to the superintendent as soon as I got involved in this race, and unfortunately I was not able to meet with him. I did not get back. But I'm more than happy to meet with anyone who wants to sit down, and that includes the superintendent. And I think that's probably the best way to have a conversation with him, along with anybody else in the community that wants to talk about budgetary concerns. In terms of what my priorities are, student achievement. That's why I've agreed to donate my entire salary to charity, because I feel like we should be spending money in the classrooms first. And that includes me. Why should you be paying me a salary when every board member on the City of Decatur schools doesn't get paid a salary? And I think there's, probably speaks to their motivation why they're such a model school system, as my opponent points out.
Thank you.
When it comes to the budget, as a matter of fact, we do meet with the superintendent when it comes to the budget. And the superintendent asks each board member personally what are their top priorities. And some of my top priorities this year were teacher salaries. Well, as a matter of fact, all of the board had the same top three. Teacher salaries, furlough days, and student achievement. And those are present in the budget. And if you look at the meeting last night, you will see that that was present in the budget. We're adding an additional 100 teachers in order to reduce class size. We have removed all furlough days from teachers. This is a great accomplishment. This also shows you that we are good stewards of the budget. Because if you think about these furlough days, there were 6 furlough days. Each furlough day is $3 million. You're talking about a board and a superintendent and a staff that have put together $18 million in order to pull back furlough days. A budget that has taken into consideration or allotted $8 million in order to hire an additional 100 teachers. So we have to prioritize what we're going to put in the budget, and we do talk to the superintendent. And as Mr. Winston is over there, standing today, he's concerned about nursing. He wants every school to have a nursing. So we are in continuous communication with the superintendent. And also, mid-year, we have adjustments. So we even reinvest some of our surplus back into the budget. So we're always looking at the budget. Thank you.
How do you evaluate the effectiveness of current efforts to close this gap? What is not being done now to close the gap that you would like to see implemented? Starting in this area, please. We can always start from this end, okay?
Fair enough.
All right.
That's all right.
All right, well, I get that.
I don't mind. It's not a
Okay.
problem. I need you to reset the time. I think the biggest thing to affect or to improve student achievement, regardless of whether I'm focused on it in the budget, I mean, it's pretty clear from anyone who's been reading paper, CRCT scores this year declined on every single level. We were the last in the metro area, Taft County was, in CRCT scores across the board. And more students didn't graduate this year than didn't graduate in 2012 when the governor removed the entire board. So, I think it's incredibly important to focus on student achievement. And one of the ways I think we can do that is to make sure that principals have the ability to manage their school. Teachers have the ability to direct their own curriculums and have some input into what course materials are chosen for their students. Certainly, we can't expect that student or a classroom in Dunwoody is equivalent to a classroom that speaks 47 languages in Clarkston. And right now, our principals don't have the ability to manage their schools. They don't have the ability to hire and fire their teachers and staff. And the principal or the teachers do not have the ability to manage their own curriculums, specifically for those students. And lastly, I think it involves accountability. And that accountability means that parents have choices, that parents are not locked into their zip codes, and they have the ability to choose whichever school in the county is suitable to their child. And I think they're fully capable of making that decision. And when they're able to make those decisions, we're going to see a drastic improvement in student achievement, because all of a sudden, those other schools that are failing are held accountable. And those parents that have been there and they're trying to volunteer and putting forth all that effort are no longer trapped in that system.
Thank you.
So before I answer the question, I just want to step back to a comment that my opponent made. I was watching the news today, and I was at a board meeting last night where they said that schools made advances on all core subject matter except math. So how can we be better? Did anybody else see that on the news? I saw the news, and I remember the superintendent said something about it last night. So I was going to get information on about that. about assessing the academic habits that we have. Like I brought up before, we have the universal screening. We spend over $1 million on this universal screening. The teachers and principals that I talk to are enjoying this universal screening. They're enjoying it for one purpose, or one main reason why they're enjoying it, is because they're able to show the kids themselves, their results, the plan, and where they need to go. They're actually able to bring the parent in to see this data, to show them how we work as a team to get their child where they need to go. So that universal screening is really coming in handy. Also, the district was just awarded a Wallace grant for $3 million in order to decentralize and push control down through the regional superintendents to the principals. We also have the Principals Academy and Aspirants Principals Academy in order to train our principals to manage the buildings and be more of an instructional tool for our teachers. And also this Wallace proposal is going to help with our superintendents. We're actually going to try to increase the number of superintendents so they're actually supervising less principals. So they're actually—
Thank you. You can stay right there. I'm going to have you deal with this next question first. You'll be the first one to answer this question. How will you share your enthusiasm for public education with taxpayers in your district? How will you communicate with your constituents, even those who do not have children enrolled in the system?
Well, how do I communicate to my constituents? In my district, there are over 120 homeowners associations. I'm trying to get to as many as possible. Just this past week, I was at 2 meetings. And one of the first things I actually engage with in these community meetings is your phone. And everybody has a cell phone, right? Say yes. Yes. How many people have downloaded the county app on that cell phone? But education is the #1 priority, though, isn't it? That county app actually pushes all the important information to you through your cell phone. Emergencies, calendar. You can actually profile your student in that phone so you have direct contact to that school for calendar and menu, right? So that's information that we try to get out there. Other information that I try to get out there is about the charter system itself. Just the other day I was sitting in the park, it was about 90 degrees, and I had on this suit, sweat, trying to explain the charter system. And it wasn't that people were afraid of the charter system, it's just that they didn't quite understand how it was going to fit into what they thought the school system should be. And was it going to take money away from the school system? So basically, to answer your question, we just have to get out there and educate people. And not push fear, but push intellect. Thank you.
If you'd like me to, I can repeat the question. Would you like me to? Sure. How do you share your enthusiasm for public education with the taxpayers in your district?
Okay. Sure. I think one of the ways that I've already started doing that is by writing letters to the editor whenever I feel like it's appropriate or there's not an issue that's getting out there. And there are quite a number of those, especially in the education world, that just, frankly, when you've got hot topics like county corruption, don't make it to the front pages and are not very popular topics with the news media. So I think that's probably one way that we can do that. I've got a pretty extensive email list that I reach out to people. I go to a lot of meetings, and frankly, that's been the frustration that I've heard at a number of neighborhood meetings. Has been that they've reached out to the incumbent, and he's not been in attendance, and he has not responded. I've been trying to set up a meeting with the incumbent since I got in here, and I haven't had one yet. And just to answer the question back about the CRCT results, I don't get most of my source data from the news, but if you look on the CRCT Scores website, you can compare and you can see for yourself. All of the information is right there in black and white, and you can see for yourself. And then also, in terms of communicating with constituents, I think you just need to get out there. It's not rocket science, but I've yet to see my opponent at our own community meeting. We live in the same neighborhood, and I've been there for 12 years now. I think you just need to make yourself accessible. If anybody has one of my cards, my cell phone's in the back. I put it in the paper. Every article I write, my website, everything. If you want to get in touch with me, you can get in touch with me. I appreciate the fact that we have cell phones. I don't think we need an app. You can call me when you can call me.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We're now at the part of the program where we're going to take questions rather from the audience. And I'm going to start on the opposite end this time. First question. School ratings in the 3rd district are embarrassingly low. What measures do you propose to address this massive problem?
School ratings are drastically low. Well, that should be taking a snapshot of it in 2012. We need to move past 2012 with the new board and the new superintendent and see how things are changing now. And as my opponent spoke about the graduation rate, 2013 graduation rate 57, going up to 60. Those percentage points mean something, that we're doing something right in DeKalb County. So another way to get our ratings up in our school district is to take advantage of what we're offering. We're offering tutorials in our schools, in the evenings, in the mornings, and on weekends. This summer, to get our ratings up, we're offering boot camps for English, math, and all the core subjects, transportation, and food provided. We're offering summer school. Well, they don't call it summer school anymore, they call it credit recovery. We're offering credit recovery. So the students can graduate if they only missed about a few credits. We're also offering, or we have partnerships with Georgia Permanent College, Piedmont Technical College, and Atlanta Metropolitan College for these kids to go and improve confidence scores or pass the Georgia High School graduation test. So we're doing all this to improve ratings in our school system. Also, we're trying to reach out and get the community involved with this proposed charter system. So we will have local governments. We're trying to push the government out of central office and back to our schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm glad to hear that we are now trying with a $3 million grant to push control down to our schools. I haven't seen it, and I wonder why it hasn't started already. I don't think we need $3 million in order to decentralize our administrative system. Our budget right now is $1.25 billion, and we're graduating 58%. My opponent continues to cite the 60%. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm more than happy to look at whatever data is out there. The statistics that I read showed that more seniors did not graduate this year than didn't graduate in 2012. So that would mean that the graduation rate is lower. In terms of actually improving those ratings, I think decentralization is a big part of it. School choice is a big part of it. Giving parents the ability to choose the schools that they want, encouraging more charters in South DeKalb so that those people have local options that they can choose. My opponent said he doesn't think his son's charter school is better. Then why are you sending him there? Why would you send him to the local public schools? Are much closer. It's obviously if you didn't think it would be better, then you wouldn't. I mean, every parent wants to do what's best for their child, and that's I think one of the major points to take away from all of the discussions in DeKalb County right now. The other elements I think we can do is make sure that our dollars are getting to the classrooms. And right now, only 61% of our tax dollars are actually making the classroom, as opposed to a charter where that's 97%. That's a pretty big advantage. And whatever you want to call it, when you're dealing with 97% of the pie versus 61%, you're going to be able to achieve great results. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next question. There's a widespread problem of bullying administrators, mainly in South DeKalb. What do you plan to do about it, if anything at all? Starting again on the end.
Well, the bullying in South DeKalb. First of all, that is a day-to-day management situation. And that falls under the purview of the superintendent. And the superintendent is addressing that. We've heard the issues about bullying from principals. We've heard about bullying from regional superintendents. But that is a change in culture. And that change in culture is coming. And that change in culture starts at the top. And the board has set an exemplary example on how to behave professionally, so does the superintendent and so does the staff. And we're pushing that down through the system. Now, are we going out here firing people, principals? No, that's not our job to fire principals. That is up to the superintendent. We hold them accountable for that. And there is a way for you to report that, and for us to take, well, not us, but the superintendent and his chief of staff to take measures to get that out of the way, to root that problem out. So, do we ourselves as a board handle employee harassment and bullying? No, but we put policies in place that can be followed by the superintendent, because that's what the board does. It puts policies and gives the superintendent the power and resources that he needs to conduct business. And some of that business is trying to weed out bullying. So, can we do it? No, but the superintendent can take care of it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Pardon me? Yes, please, I'm sorry, I'm thinking ahead. I was concentrating on time, I'm sorry.
You were specifically asking about bullying administrators.
Yes, that's right.
I'm an outsider of the school system, so I haven't had a lot of experience with bullying administrators. But, you know, in running a company, certainly I can speak, and I agree with my opponent that, you know, culture probably has a lot to do with that. And, you know, as a school board member, we set policy, we manage the budget, we manage the superintendent. So, you know, from a policy standpoint, we can certainly set policy that tries to encourage a culture of respect and professionalism. But in terms of actually addressing the situation, that may be a little bit more difficult for a school board specifically. But certainly I think that if you're empowering local jurisdictions and local schools, then you are changing that culture, and that's something that I think we need to do and we should have already been doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. What is the one thing you've learned about your opponent that you admire? Let's start with you. Mm-hmm.
That's easy. You know, I certainly admire the fact that, as I mentioned, my opponent lives in my neighborhood, and there's no question that the Druid Hills Charter Cluster would have increased property values throughout our area. My opponent, you own a house or what? But in any case, the property values, you know, would have been increasing. He still voted, you know, in order to, you know, to deny the application. I think it's unfortunate. But and I don't agree with the decision certainly, but it's something that I admire when someone is willing to go against their own self-interest. I think it's something that we certainly would like to look for more in our elected officials. Certainly, given the recent news and the history of corruption throughout the county. But yeah, I think that's probably the most important thing.
Thank you. All right.
I'm trying to get over his comments too. What I admire about my opponent, you know what? I'll just read the paper the other day. I admire how he can make such colorful literature in the paper. When he talks about KIP, as a matter of fact. He loves KIP, that's his big thing. Two things. When I talked to my opponent, when we first started running, I'm only running for one reason, to pass the Druid Hills Charter Cluster. That is true. We had that discussion after the NAACP forum, but now it's not true. Because now you want to push KIP on the south part of the district, while you push the Druid Hills Charter Cluster over the north part.
Well, just a moment. Excuse me.
This is what I admire about it. Because
Please, wait a second. This is not a debate, okay? Excuse me. I'm just saying for both of you, it's not a debate. I want you to please give him an opportunity to respond the same way that he gave you the opportunity, okay? Please don't interrupt him. Thank you. Continue.
And I guess I like how he tries to separate the district, north and south. We are one big cab. That's all it is, one big cab. He's talking about KIP all the time. Let's talk about KIP. I just read that thing about KIP. And you know where they have the largest dropout? Is in middle school. They are losing 30% of their students nationwide in middle school, but he's not telling you about that. Ask him what happens to the kids that don't fit the KIP's mold. They get kicked back out of the school. But this is what he wants for South DeKalb, right? Well, let's have KIP run North DeKalb and see how that works.
I don't know if I have the time, but I'm going to respond to that. Because
there will be an opportunity for you all to discuss this and debate this someplace else. Excuse me, let's be respectful of the audience. This is not the format of this program, okay? So let's be respectful of their time so that you can give them very succinct answers to the questions that you're asking. We know that this is a heated race. We appreciate your enthusiasm about what you're trying to accomplish, but let's do it the right way tonight, okay? That concludes this session. Thank you very much. First question, it's a multi-part question, okay? DeKalb is chosen to transition to a charter system. What would be your approach to approving or disapproving charter clusters? What is your experience with charter schools in DeKalb? And also, which school district in the county would you consider to be excellent models? So we're going to start off that by giving everyone your name and then answer the question. If you'd like me to repeat the question, I'd be happy to do that.
Ladies first. My name's Jim McMahon. I'm your elected official for District 4 for the DeKalb County School Board. First part of the question is, how would I specifically approve or disapprove charter clusters? Is that correct?
What would be your approach to approve or disapprove charter?
All right, so my approach has been essentially the process that we've been through, which is where we have an engaged, involved community, take the time and effort to create a 600-page petition to advocate for every child in their community. And I read through it. I understand from a parent standpoint and a supporter of our schools how much goes into supporting schools, and they took the next step to wanted to be part of the governance team and improve the resources and conditions for our schools, and that is the process that happened in which I did support our Druid Hills Charter Cluster. And I look forward to my vision in the future to have, as a charter system, other communities that support their schools in that way, to that type of level of input, and want to have that type of governance. I will support them also, no matter what part of this county, because we all want the best for our kids. Most successful charters.
Thank you. Yes, I would be happy to. The county has chosen to transition to a charter system. What would be your approach to approving or disapproving charter clusters? What is your experience with charter schools in DeKalb? And which school districts in the county would you consider to be excellent models? Karen? Country. Why do I keep Is it country or county? Country. Okay.
A little bit of information. DeKalb County has not chosen a charter system as of yet. It is something that is being recommended. The board has not voted on it. A committee was formed, the flexibility options, and advisory committee was formed to look at 3 possible options. Out of that, the committee recommended the charter system. The superintendent and his staff have explored and reviewed that and are recommending that to the board, but that decision has not been made or finalized. Should we follow a charter system, it provides the flexibility, accountability, and opportunity for schools throughout the district to pursue a charter cluster. It could be within the current attendance zone, it could be across attendance zones. I think what is important for me in determining whether or not a charter cluster is appropriate and would be approved is to go through a traditional review process as we have established, and it's a model that's provided by the state system for application, but the articulation is always student achievement and innovation first. So when a proposal comes forward, we're looking for what is unique about this cluster that would promote student achievement, closing that gap. When I think about charter systems that I've been involved with, or charter schools specifically, I have not in the DeKalb County system. I don't have children here. So I have not been engaged with a single charter school specifically. I follow a few of them with passion and interest because they are doing innovative things, such as Tapestry. When I think about models, it's Decatur cities and Marietta cities.
Thank you. Next question. Why should voters choose you over your opponent? What do you uniquely bring to the board? Jim?
Am I going to go first to every question?
No, I'm going to alternate.
All right. When you say alternate, do you alternate every question or every other question? I'm just asking. Process thing.
Let me say this for the audience. Say they're really interested in hearing what your answers to the question. So let's let you answer the question, okay?
Thanks for not answering my
Thank you.
question. Okay, thanks. Why me? So back to my path and my history with the system. I've been around for the last decade. I've seen the challenges that every school has in DeKalb. Our traditional way of teaching 140 schools is too big, massively huge. You're telling me that we have a solution for every school at a central office? No, we got to rely on our communities. Our communities know our students. That is who is engaged in the schools. So we're on a journey right now. We've kind of bottomed out in the past couple of years. We're moving in a very positive direction. I think people are starting to believe in DeKalb right now. The school system is moving in a direction where we are pushing down our local control. Dr. Carter has said that we have not approved the charter process yet, charter system, but it's because the communities have spoken out. And the district has listened and conveyed that to the board. This is what our stakeholders are asking for. And I understand that, I support that, and I'm part of the process in the future that's going to be able to implement the type of resources we need in our schools. 97% of the revenue will go circumvent the central office and go straight to the schools. Then the decisions on how to spend it will be made.
Thank you. Karen?
Thank you, Linda. I appreciate my colleague greatly, and he brings a wealth of knowledge and experience as a parent and a volunteer in this county. Probably more years than I've been here 12 years, but I bring depth of experience. I am a 26-plus year educator. I've worked in every type of post-secondary system there is, so I understand the requirements and mandates of what we expect students to be able to do when they come, not K through 12, because that doesn't exist anymore, K through 16. I meet students at the margins when they show up in my classroom at community college. I know what's missing academically. I know what's missing socially and wrapping your arms around them. I have the depth and experience of understanding curriculum and instruction, as well as administration, having been a senior administrator in higher education. I've also run a university foundation, so I understand complex budgets, how to manage finance, how to use scarce resources, and to allocate them and push them down. I've worked in 2 HBCUs that were financially under distress, one of which was going to be taken over by accreditation, and one of which was going to be closed by government. So this isn't my first rodeo with the governor saying, go in and fix the system or be a part of the team. And I understand that that requires collaboration. It requires competency in understanding the issues in policy making. It also means getting down and putting on blue jeans and cleaning a room. If that's what it takes, there's a difference here, and that's the difference.
Thank you. The school board votes on the fiscal year budget as presented by the superintendent. So here's a question. How will you approach the budgetary process, and what are your funding priorities? How will you share your ideas with the superintendent?
We've come a long way in budgeting from when I first started doing budgeting in higher education, where you did walkabouts. You walked about to find out what the needs and desires and wants were of the community, the students that you serve, the faculty, the staff. I don't think that's changed. So for the superintendent, their team does that, and they bring that to the board. But we also, as a board, sit down, as our colleague mentioned, and we express our priorities. My priorities are student achievement, closing that gap. That means having curriculum tools, teachers who are talented, ready, willing, and able to teach, and the resources to support that. That means reorganizing the budget and pushing our priorities in that direction. It also means paying teachers so that they are incentivized to stay. High-quality teachers can leave anytime. We recognize that. There are other districts who are willing to pay more. We have to continue to work out our budget so that we are paying an equitable and an excellent wage to our high-quality teachers and dispersing them throughout the district. So my priorities, closing the achievement gap, paying teachers an excellent salary, and providing the tools. We put our priorities out. We talk amongst ourselves. We compare our priorities. But more importantly, we also invite our constituents to communicate with us. I receive emails, I receive phone calls, I get notes that say, hey, I'm concerned about this in my school, and we ask, is this happening across the district? I believe that that's the best way to share our priorities and to change the budget.
Thank you. Jim?
Repeat the question, please.
The school board votes on the fiscal year budget as presented by the superintendent. How will you approach the budgetary process, And what are your funding priorities? How will you share your ideas with the superintendent?
Wouldn't it be great if we didn't have to worry about budgets? 97% goes to the school, that's it. Done. How about it? Or we stay the path where we budgeted last year $369 million for instruction this current year, 2014. That's to pay teachers' salaries, to deliver the resources in the classroom. We didn't spend it all. We left $18 million on the table. Look at our budget. We did not spend all of our allocated funds for instruction. 5% of our budget we did not spend on instruction. Who makes that decision? I think it should be our communities that deliver, that receive the funds and spend the money. We spent 61.8% in 2012 in the classroom. This current fiscal 15 year, we're up to 70%. We're making progress as a traditional system. 97%.
Thank you. Next question pertains to the achievement gap in the district. How do you evaluate the effectiveness of current efforts to close this gap? What is not being done to close the gap that you would like to see implemented? Karen?
I believe that we evaluate the gap by the results that we see in our testing. As you are aware, we have shifted from one model of testing with CRCT and following the state evaluation to the CCRPI, College and Career Readiness Performance Index. That index has a different set of indicators, and part of our task is understanding the difference between those indicators and the CRCT. Nonetheless, our critical concerns continue to be student performance in math and reading. The use of the universal screener is step one. I am looking for, and what is missing for me is the next step beyond. How do we evaluate and assess that tool? That is a work in progress. It has not been presented yet, and we are looking forward, I know I am, for that to come forward from the district, how we will evaluate the results of the use of the universal screener and what the next step in implementation for student performance is. We also recognize that as the gap begins to shrink, that we cannot leave out, because most people consider that gap students who are underperforming students. But that gap is also students who are high achievers and have not reached their zenith. So it's imperative that we expand our tools and ensure that we are assisting all students in being their very academic best and not considering only students who have been underachievers and underperformers.
Thank you. Jim?
Thank you, Linda. It gets back, so student achievement, in my opinion, gets down to boots in the ground, how many teachers, how many resources are available for our kids. We have the ability to identify our children who need remediation. We know exactly our high achieving kids, and then we have our traditional learners. The bottom line is we can't get the resources to them. Period. We've got all these grandiose plans about how we're going to change this and change that for everybody. Let's get the resources into the classroom. We've got the universal screener. It does tell us, for the first time ever, if a child has gone from a 40 average to a 60 average. That's a 50% increase. That's fantastic. We've got Infinite Campus. That's a new operating system that's coming out. But we don't have additional teachers or people in the classroom. We've got the bells and the whistles and the technology. We don't have the additional teachers in the classroom. Where's the money? I'll tell you, it's not getting there. So we're on this journey, and we're moving in the right direction, but you need the leadership who understands that it's okay to let your communities govern and lead. I trust our communities. I'm part of the community. So thank you.
Thank you. Next question. How are you sharing your enthusiasm for public education with the taxpayers in your district? How will you communicate with your constituents, even those who do not have children enrolled in the system? Karen?
I share my passion for education everywhere I go. It's a hallmark of who I am and what I do. So it starts with my neighbors who are also grandparents, empty nesters. I happen to live in a community of primarily retired persons whose grandchildren come to visit. I attend a church of seniors whose grandchildren live in the community and they want the school to be better because they raise their children in District 4. So I've had a great opportunity to talk with them. They invite me out. I spend time with them. I go where they go so that we can have these conversations. I'm also a participant in a variety of meetings when invited. I attend any community meeting that I'm invited to, any local school council meeting, any PTA meeting. One of the things that we saw as an issue when we joined this board was that there was an over-intrusion of board members inappropriately. And I believe that one should be invited. I'm a guest in your house until you make me a household member. And until that happens, I won't push myself on you. But if you invite me, I'm there. Because my one neighbor who has children, I go to their programs and activities. If the church invites me, Lakeside High invites, I'm there. You take your picks. I'm happy to share. It shows in my face. It's my walk, it's my talk. And so it's very easy to do because it's who I am. It's my hallmark since I was 8 years old. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Jim?
Thank you. And I'll commend everybody on the board and even the candidates for being open and accessible. That's what it is about. I answer phone calls on a daily basis from constituents, from people who have got issues, from an email standpoint. But just like Karen said, we're part of a community. And that's what we're striving for. Just like it's for them to have. It wouldn't happen without our support, our partners in education, our partners in the business community, our partners in the medical community. Public-private partnership is what we need. We want the grants that we get. We want the collaboration, not just with DeKalb, but with Greater Atlanta, with the state of Georgia. DeKalb can set the model for local governance and high achievement. So I'm here, I'm a member of the community. I've been supporting the schools. My oldest child will be at Lakeside this year as a 9th grader. But for the last 8 years, I've been sponsoring a corporate sponsor for the baseball team and their arts program. My kids aren't actually in the school yet, but I'm supporting them because that's what you do, right? So I'm a walk-in model for public engagement, private partnerships. I'm engaged, I'm here, I'm leading by example. And that's me, Jim McMahon for District 4.
Thank you. We're now at a point where we're going to ask questions that the audience wants you to respond to. Question number 1. The graduation rate this year was an appalling 75% for the DeKalb County seniors. What is your plan to bring that rate up? Let's start with Karen.
Let me start that up. Let me take
Okay.
this. Linda, we're taking control over here. Can you repeat the question?
That's a reflection of Karen, and she knows what the question is.
Karen, did you write that question?
No. Okay, here we go. The graduation rate this year was an appalling 75% for DeKalb County seniors. What is your plan to bring that rate up?
All right, so first of all, this is what's crazy. So at the Lakeside graduation, the 4-year cohort rate is 75 for the whole county. And these are kids that some of them dropped out of the system. There's flaws in the system, first of all. But Lakeside this year, just to let you know, of the kids that showed up in this year, seniors, 99% graduated. 1% of the children that showed up at Lakeside High School this year, in their senior year, 1%, 3 kids out of 300 and change didn't graduate.
Then why does the report show 13%?
It's the 4-year rate, all right? The kids, that rate is where you start in your freshman year and go all the way through. All right, what I'm telling you is the kids that showed up there this year in the senior class, Tucker, 96%. All right, and that's the we got a communication problem in the DeKalb and throughout the nation with public education. Just like we have to educate above, right? We got to educate the public. We got to educate our legislators. We got to educate our governor, our next governor. We have to take a stand and be a model of what it's like to run a good school system. Lead by example. So that's where I am with that.
Thank you.
As Jim said, the graduation rate statistics are flawed. It tracks all students who ever enrolled in the school. So if you disenroll your child and don't tell the district where you're going, that child is considered either in the dropout rate or in the non-graduation rate. That's something we have to do a better job as a district and as a state in explaining to the citizens. Be that as it may, 75%, it's passing. Is passing good enough? No. How do we as board members improve that rate? By removing the barriers that impede student success. Differentiated instruction is something that evolves out of having the universal screen. That's one layer. We also have to bring in wraparound services. If students come to school hungry, they can't learn. If students are having difficulties at home and frequently may find themselves moving about the county because of homelessness or parents lost their jobs or mental health challenges and issues, the schoolhouse is a full-service center. Society expects us to do that, but that means we need more partnerships. So my desire is for our district to continue to work with other public service agencies to ensure that we can establish wraparound services for all children to help reduce dropout rates and then improve and strengthen academic performance. Academic coaches, differentiated instruction, gives us more time on task with each child, and last but not least, more teachers and smaller classrooms.
Thank you. The next question is, there is concern that Druid Hills Charter Cluster excluded groups of students who require special support such as ESL, special ed, discipline issues, and so forth. How do you ensure that you serve all children in DeKalb?
That's a great question. As you all know, you're very smart citizens and you've done your homework. Title 20 provides opportunities for districts and or charter applicants to request waivers. And frequently, organizations, when they're proposing charters, will request waivers that allow them to have a smaller class size and be able to narrowly focus on a targeted group of students. That's not unreasonable in and of itself. It can become unreasonable if it excludes students because they have difficulties, disabilities, or other things that are immutable, characteristics that we can't change. It's our responsibility as a board to ensure that any decision we make provides equitable opportunities for all children, however situated. We take the least of these and we take the most of these. We take those who are capable and those who need help to become capable. We take all students because the law says we take children where we find them. Our task then is to tool them up to be ready to be productive citizens in this society, right here in this county, so they'll want to stay or they'll want to come back. That requires time and resources. More teachers, smaller classrooms, the ability to analyze where that child is, and to not request waivers that would allow for the exclusion of all students in their community.
Thank you very much.
So, in their 600-page application, and I agree with Dr. Carter, that this is about getting the resources to the classroom, to the children that need it most. Within the petition for Druid Hills Charter Cluster, they had added a special needs coordinator within their district that is not currently funded throughout the county. So they, in their petition, had requested that they were going to add resources for their special needs population. They might have asked for a waiver regarding a class size, but when it came to special needs, they were adding resources for those kids. So when you have the request for additional resources, we're looking at this population, we're adding resources, I support that. Some of the board did. It's a tough call. For me, IB program, they wanted the Druid Hills Charter Cluster wanted to fund a 9th and 10th grade IB program. The county provides right now K through 8, 11 and 12. No 9 and 10.
Thank you. One more final question for you. How do you view your role as a school board member, and how will you work with the superintendent and other board members to get things done to enhance education in the DeKalb County schools? Pardon me? How about it?
Thank you. So how do I engage with the rest of the board? I try to go past our official requirements of board members and try to get to know them personally. You don't mind me talking outside church, do you? We just got back from Savannah, and Dr. Irwin and myself and Mr. Campbell, who's also on the board, took us a nice little charter fishing trip. At our own expense, not the taxpayers' expense, right? And by the way, this board does not use any type of company-issued purchasing cards. We pay our own way and file a reimbursement, all right? Period. No espresso coffee, no cream delivered to the door. So with that, though, I extend myself personally. I try to get to know the individual, not just the board member and the superintendent. And I try to have a personal relationship with them, get to know them, who they are, what makes them tick. And I'm hopeful in our next board that we're going to have that same type of collaboration. And I look forward to working with those board members also.
We do have fun. And for the record, the fellas did invite the girls. We just decided we were not doing fish. At 5 a.m. Had it been 10, it might have been possible. I do believe that this board made a decision that they would be collaborators and they would be partners. We don't always agree, but we agreed on board norms that we would not be disagreeable, and that we would be about the business of this county and these 100,000 plus students. And from that frame of reference, we develop board norms that we honor. And if we find that we dishonor them, we are honest enough to call one another on it. Brother Thad bumps me all the time. I'm like, well, Thad, you stepped on my toe 2 times too many. Now, be a little nicer to me. I am a young lady. And we can have those honest conversations with one another. We also are people, and we put our hands in our shoes on the same way. I don't believe we do that Vaseline commercial where you can successfully pull it all on at one time. I think it's one leg and one shoe at a time. And we try to spend time together. Jim likes to cook, we like to eat. I make ice cream, they want it. They bring the supplies, I supply the ice cream. In all honesty, I think it starts with a fundamental sense of mutual respect for one another, and that our mission is student first and student focused. As Michael said, we are one DeKalb, and that does not change.
Thank you very much. This concludes this session. We want to congratulate Jim, both you and Karen, for making it to the runoff. Let's give them a big hand. Thank you very much. Why should voters choose you over your opponent? What do you uniquely bring to the board? Let's start with Vicki.
I'm Vicki Turner.
Yes.
Offering for District 5 School Board. I think that voters should choose me probably for one reason. The predominating reason is the passion I have for children. I love children. I want what's best for children. I'm an educator. I'm a mom. I've been an administrator. I have a bird's eye view of what it takes to be successful in that endeavor. A model that I've had, a mantra that I've had all my life from my children, my 3 adult children, is that I would never lower the bar for them. And I said to every parent that I've ever talked to, interviewed, I said to them, I won't lower it for your children either. If it was not going to be good enough for mine, it's not good enough for yours. In other words, I expect excellence, student achievement. I have passion about it. I'm passionate as a parent. I think every parent wants the same thing for their children, the absolute best. I bring that voice to those citizens that are voiceless and don't know how to communicate and articulate that. I bring that. I believe that I am the worthy candidate for that.
Thank you. Pat?
Good evening, and thank you to It's for Them and its collaborators for bringing us here today. My name is Thad Mayfield, currently candidate for District 5. I believe that I bring a unique set of capabilities, which is why I think you should vote for me and have your friends and family and everybody that you know in District 5 to vote for me. I am passionate about education, and I am passionate about children. And I think that's important, as Vicki mentioned. But I've also demonstrated that commitment. Over the past 28 years, I have worked tirelessly, in our opinion, working to improve the quality of education for our children. Because it is the pathway to the quality of life that all of us aspire. And thirdly, and I think probably equally as important, is that I have governed in a number of environments. I was 30 years ago, 25 years ago, I was on the Office of Equal Opportunity, appointed by Governor Zell Miller and Joe Frank Harris. I'm currently on the Livonia Housing Authority. But I understand business, and I understand how to assess whether or not the resources that you're spending are actually delivering the results that you're asking for. And I think those 3 things are important to this job, and that's why I think you should choose me as your District 5 representative.
Thank you. Next question. Pertains to the CAB is chosen to transition to a charter system. What would be your approach to approving or disapproving charter clusters? What is your experience with charter schools in DeKalb? And which school districts in the country would you consider to be excellent models? Here. Vicki?
You can name the first part of the question.
Sure. What would be your approach to approving or disapproving charter clusters?
Okay.
Mhm.
I approach the cluster with a lot of, and the only words that I can think of is fear and trepidation. I'm very uncomfortable with it because I do believe that we have to be very careful that we don't create an elite system of educating certain children. I am very concerned about the disparity in the educational opportunities that are afforded students. I love what one of the candidates says, we are one DeKalb. That's what we should be. We should represent not just South and North, not just social economic status, but I do believe that all children deserve an opportunity to be afforded to them to have a quality. See, we say public a lot, but it's not just public. I believe it's excellent education. Not just public, excellent education, because public should be excellent. And so I approach it with a lot of resistance. I think we have to do our due diligence in studying that model. I believe that whatever the mandate is, whatever the board brings, and we decide if it goes to a charter system, then that's something that we'll have to do collectively. But I just hope that we do our due diligence and making sure we don't leave other students out of the equation. That's my concern. Students will be left out of the equation of a quality education if we forge ahead without doing our due diligence for the cluster system.
Thank you. Okay.
My approach to the charter process, or evaluating the charter process, is a business process. I first try to identify, let me start first. The first thing I want is information. Given the opportunities that we have and given the challenges that we face, I don't think fear is a good tool. I think information, I think we get the information, you assess whether or not it satisfies a unique need, you determine whether or not those unique qualities of that particular petition can be leveraged throughout the district, and you determine how you can manage the risks. If you can do those three things, you don't need to be afraid. And we can't afford to be afraid, given the performance of our students today. The systems that I've had experience with, unfortunately, are not in the academy. But a few years ago in Fulton County, I developed a business plan for the Atlanta KIPP schools. And so I'm very familiar with not only how they operate in terms of their instructional program, but I'm also familiar with how they conduct business. I would agree that the Decatur system is a model that's right next door to emulate. And I think the school systems in Denver, I've taken a look at those. I think that's another good system. But I think we've got some resources, even though they're not a charter system. I think Gwinnett is a system to look for some capabilities to distribute.
Thank you. Next question. The school board votes on the fiscal year budget as presented by the superintendent. How will you approach the budgetary process, and what are your funding priorities? How will you share your ideas with the superintendent? Vicki?
Information. Sometimes I've heard something that says we don't like details, but it's essential that you have the details, line item, line by line of a budget. We throw fancy figures around. For example, I think they say if we do the charter system that 97% of the funds are directed to the schools. I think it's more, and I believe in being fiscally responsible. I govern a school. I run a budget. I dot my I's and cross my T's, but I think it's more than that. I think that we have to get into the details. I do believe that DeKalb is top heavy. I do believe that we have got to get those funds trickled down into the classroom, but is charter the way to do that? Is a cluster the way to do that? I don't believe that. I believe that there are more responsible ways to get those tools in the hands of those teachers to be able to teach with the autonomy and the creativity that they need. I think that the principals need more control in those schools. I believe that we have lost the passion of our educators, of our leaders, because we have abdicated the responsibility from those teachers and taken it to central office. It must come back to the schools. I believe that's possible. Budget means you look at 1 + 1 = 2. It doesn't change this determined by who's in control. It's very simple. And you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure that out. I believe that the funds must come back to the schools and the classroom to our students to get the success level that we want.
Thank you very much.
My approach to the budgeting process is essentially twofold. I guess a third in terms of if you want to go into how you want to set priorities. But fundamentally, it's about effectiveness and accountability. Are the dollars you're spending doing what they intend to do? And can you determine, in fact, that they did that? And that's one of the challenges that the district has right now. We've acknowledged it publicly. We don't readily have the information that we need to make the kind of decisions about assessing whether or not these dollars are going in the right direction. But I think in terms of how you approach that process, I think you approach it in 3 levels. I think you look at what your base needs are. What do you need to have to keep the doors open? I think secondly, you look at what are the programmatic elements of the budget and what are they supposed to produce. And then thirdly, I think you look at a smaller amount to look for innovation. How do we get beyond where we are now? I think that the way you set those priorities is clearly making academics first. But I think you have to unpeel that onion and look at what are the factors that contribute to academic success. And you begin to invest or disinvest based on the productivity of those dollars. And finally, I think you share your ideas with the superintendent simply with the conversation. I think you bring the information with you because this is not about ideas often when you're talking about it.
Thank you. All right, next question. Pertaining to the achievement gap in the district. How do you evaluate the effectiveness of current efforts to close this gap? What is not being done now to close the gap that you would like to see implemented? Vicki?
I think our children are oftentimes left out of the equation. What I've discovered over time as a professional, as a mature adult, is that ownership is essential to success. And children have not been brought into the equation where they can own what possibilities exist for their future. Teachers haven't been brought into the equation so that they can own the possibilities that can exist in that classroom. I believe that we have got to get an engagement going for community, because it's one thing for us to sit here and dwell on what the problems are, but it's another to get involved in the solution. And I believe everybody in this room is a part of that solution. I don't think it's just a board member. I think it's our community. I came up that way. It was essential to the success that I achieved. And I believe that that still it can work today. So all of us have to be engaged and bring our children up to a level of what not just what is acceptable, but what the possibilities are. Our children are failing for lack of vision. They've lost vision and hope. And their teachers are failing for lack of vision and lost hope. And we as a board need to get involved in that. We as a community to say all things are possible and we can achieve it together. It's not just the teachers, it's not just the parents, it's not just the children. It is a community, a collaborative effort.
Thank you, Vicki.
Can I get you to repeat the question?
Sure. Pertaining to the achievement gap in the district. How do you evaluate the effectiveness of current efforts to close the gap? What is not being done now to close the gap that you would like to see implemented?
I think that the efforts to close the achievement gap are laudable in many respects. I think it comes back to the information that we need to actually make the critical decisions about assessment. I think we got tools, we're investing in those tools, but we've got a little ways to go. And so what I would do differently, or in addition to what we're doing now, is to invest more in assessment, even in terms of assessing and being able to predict whether or not children might drop out before they graduate. But I also think you need to change the culture. I think currently the culture is a top-down approach to the classroom. And I think teachers are the front line. They know when our students change. They know when the needs change. And so I think in terms of the administrative culture, I think it needs to bubble up from the classroom. That's what should determine what type of support students need, what types of programs that students need, not from the administration down. That's the one thing I would change.
Thank you. All right, next question. How will you share your enthusiasm for public education with the taxpayers in your district? How will you communicate with your constituents, even those who do not have children enrolled in the system? Vicki?
Encourage the dialogue. I think that I've said this at many forums, same thing. You cannot disengage yourself from the people who put you in office. We have to be accessible. We have to, and we all live busy lives, but the reason for which we serve, and I look at this school board opportunity as service. We must engage in a dialogue. Therefore, you gotta have town hall meetings. People just want to know that they are heard. People just want to know that they are valued and that they bring something to the table. We all may communicate in different ways. We may look different, but we all have something valuable to bring to the table. So you've got to do town hall meetings. You've got to be able to communicate. Even teachers need that place to be able to dialogue and to be heard. And once that they understand that they're heard, and I think parents as well, we call it stakeholders. We've got to have the dialogue with the stakeholders. I think that as a board, we have disengaged ourselves and govern from the halls of a board room. And we have to get out in the community to find out what it is our community desires and to give them a vision of what is possible for the future of their children. If we don't reach back, then woe unto us as a society. It's not just the school system, it is our community, it is our world.
Thank you.
Well, I start with my passion for education. I go back to that point. I mean, it is so fundamental to who I am that it's probably communicated with almost any conversation that I have. And what I think is important about it is being able to communicate it, not just in bad terms, but in terms of the people that you're talking to, in terms of the faith-based community, and understanding what they can do to help and how they can become passionate. And understanding the businessman or the man who's interested or the woman who's interested in economic development. Understanding the key relationship between the success of a society's economy and the quality of children that quality of education that it delivers to its children. And so I think you do that just in being. But for the average person who may not be quite as passionate, I think you make sure that you are in contact with the information flow about what's important about education. The neighborhoods that you move in, what can you do with your extra time just to find out what's going on about education in your community. Because understanding that whatever your role is in the community, that involving yourself with education is actually helping to enhance that community, whether you've got children in the system or not. And that's, teaching a child how to be respectful, as an example, goes a long way in making sure that the school system functions.
Thank you. We are now at a point where we're going to pose questions that the audience have for you. The first question, I'd like to start with you, Thad. The first question is, many of the high schools in District 5 averaged 20% of students not graduating this past year. How do you work to improve those numbers?
Well, again, I think the first thing that we need to do is to understand where those students are and what sort of profile they may represent, so that we can better understand how we can systematically address those problems. I would imagine that some of those characteristics of those students, whether it's their home environment, whether it's learning challenges they might have, could probably be grouped, and that we can find effective ways to finance or to get community support, whether it's through the faith-based community or civic groups, to help engage those students and engage those families, help them get the tools that they need, whether it's extra time with a particular course, may even just be an iPad or a laptop, to be able to have access to technology to learn more in the after hours. It may just be transportation. And so we've got to be able to understand what the real issues are. And I think that's how you address the graduation problems, identifying what those problems are and then crafting systemic solutions around them.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's pretty sad that we had to get to 12th grade to figure out we had a problem, when it was probably evident in middle school. And so when you inherit a broke system, it's like a snowball going downhill picking up momentum. And that's what has happened. I think that the teachers, I think it's been spoken tonight, teachers know their children, just like parents know their children. And teachers can see those indicators much earlier and much sooner than you'll get it in the newspaper. I think teachers are essential to this equation. To get in there and find out, because we have, I think, cookie cutter education, if that's correct. We've got a cookie cutter approach. And all children learn differently, but they all can learn. All children have a passion for something. I think Thad mentioned technology. This generation is productive and progressive in technology, so we can't just do it the way we used to do it 20 years ago. We've got to come to where they are, reach down to where they are, and most times they're going to teach us a few things to take them up to where we desire them to be. I think that the graduation rate, it is deplorable, but I believe that there's an answer, and the answer still lies within the community which we all represent. I think that we all can reach back and help those children. I believe if we get more mentors in our business community and take those children under your wing and give them opportunities, give them birth of vision and passion, I believe that we can turn this thing around. We do have children that go get GEDs.
Thank you.
Those statistics bear that out, though.
Thank you very much. The next question. Why are we going to spend $3 million to hire, and move superintendents? Instead, we pay stipends for college students and community people to mentor, tutor, and volunteer in our schools. So essentially, why are we going to spend $3 million to hire new superintendents? Instead, we pay stipends for college students and community people to mentor, tutor, and volunteer in our schools. Thad, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I want to make sure I understand the question, but let me play it back the way I heard it.
Okay.
And do I get paid for that? Okay, I guess the way I'm hearing it is that there seems to be in the mind of the questioner a disparity or a mix in priorities in terms of how much we pay principals to acquire principals versus how much we pay tutors.
That's what sounds like to me as well.
No, I think it's the Wallace grant. The Wallace grant, $3 million for the regional supers.
Oh, okay. If that's the question, if it's about the Wallace grant, this was a grant that was provided to us to help study. In fact, we were one of 28, I think, districts that were even allowed to participate in the pool of potential candidates to look at how we develop leadership within our administration down to the schools. So from our principals, our area superintendents or supervisors for our superintendents, our principals. This is a grant for us, so we're not paying them, they're paying us actually to be able to do this work, if that's the question. If the question was the former, however, my response would be, it just, from a business perspective, it's just supply and demand. We need great leadership in schools in order to have great leadership in our administration, to have great leadership in the district and in our schools. And so the market forces us, quite honestly, to do what we have to do to get that good leadership. Unfortunately, the market doesn't pay as much for us to be able to pay tutors. I mean, that's the straight answer.
Thank you.
I do believe vision comes from the top and it leads down. And we all know that there are some issues in our leadership in our schools that our principals do need mentorship, they need proper training. I believe they've been cast out into an environment, sink or swim, and unfortunately some of them have sank, and our children have sank along with them. So I do believe it's important. I see it in an ideal world, and I live in my daughter likes to call it la-la land sometimes. In an ideal world, I think we should have both ends. I do believe we should have mentors for those kids. I do believe I think it's possible. So I don't think it's enough to just say we don't have enough money in our budget to do it. I think we need to find the money. One thing I'll say about Michael Thurman is he went out there on a mission and he found money. So that means money is out there to be found. And so I think that if we make a decision of what is important, we find the money to do what we need to do. It's kind of like in your home. When we make a decision, we want something in our home, we find the money to do it. And so I think that we need to make it a concerted effort, a priority to find the funds that we need to increase our student achievement, to help with our leadership in our school, to give our teachers the resources. We need to seek and we will find. I just believe that. Maybe that's idea, maybe that's not business, but that's how I look at it. And I think it's essential that we keep it as a priority.
Thank you. Final question. I'm going to read this question as exactly the way it is written. And I don't want to try to interpret it. You may understand it. And the questioner may want to clarify it for us if it's not completely clear to you. The question is, will you be in agreement with partnering with community organizations with help from the central office to train college students to flood our schools on the elementary, middle, high school level to become mentors, tutors, and volunteers in our schools in South DeKalb, which would help increase student achievement and reduce dropout rates?
Absolutely, unequivocally, yes. I think that we need to understand, and we need to train children to understand, as we train a community to understand, we are our brother's keeper. Our children, even though they matriculate and may go on to college, they need to have an awareness that they must reach back and help those children that are behind them. It's a vein of continuity. It's a vein, like begets like. And if those children have learned some valuable lessons that are serving them in the college environment, they need to have an awareness that they must go back and help those children. I think it's essential. I think it's important. I think it's the overall health of a community for us to reach back for our kids. But we've left, sometimes, you know, our kids get that thing, I've got mine, you get yours. I don't think that that's going to work for us. I've got mine, but I won't be comfortable until you get yours as well. Is the mentality we must birth in our leaders. Those children that are in college are our leaders of tomorrow. If they don't reach back, then it becomes an apathetic society, and we all suffer for it. So absolutely, I support it.
Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't think you can not support that. But I think what it does, though, it raises this question about how do you engage innovation in a school system or in a school building that is flooded with requirements already. And I think one of the things that what this idea represents, I think, it represents the kind of thinking that we need in all of our communities. It represents the kind of initiatives that our schools ought to be able to embrace. And we need to be able to find leadership in schools, as an example, that can remove some of the, what I would call sort of the straitjacket or the technical things that teachers have to do other than teaching. And so we need the kind of leadership that can not only embrace that kind of innovation, but actually help make it happen. So I applaud whoever asked that question and encourage you to engage whatever school is in your community to try to make that happen. You get a supporter from me.
That is the last of the questions, and I want to thank you, Vicki and Thad, for your time on that. Sorry?
Yes, do we get to answer the question of what
Oh, I'm sorry? Well, if you want to do that, sure. They're telling me you can do it. All right. Okay, excuse me. Let me repeat the question for the audience. Essentially, what she was asking, wanted to respond to the same question that we asked the other candidates. What positive traits that they see in their opponent?
I do. I like that question. I really do. And I believe in the answer that I'm going to give you. Thad Mayfield called me when I got in the runoff, and he congratulated me. And he said, let's have a positive campaign. And I like that, I support that, and I admire that about you.
Well, thank you, Vic. I'm almost speechless, but in addition to liking what you just said, no, really, I mean, I think Vicki is gracious. I mean, I think she is passionate. She clearly has leadership skills, given the success of the school that she founded. So, I mean, she's got a lot of qualities that I admire, and I think she's a class. I do.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's give them another big hand. Thank you very much. Well, this further concludes my job tonight, and I just want to say to the audience, thank you so much for your interest and for showing up tonight and participating in this very, very important forum tonight. I've lived in several other states prior to coming to Georgia, and as a retired broadcaster, I can't think of anything more important than what we're doing here tonight. And I just want to applaud all of you for being here and participating. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to do this.
Well, of course, we also need to thank Linda Torrance. So thank you very much for moderating this evening. Thank you to the candidates for coming. Once again, this is really unprecedented in this county. We had everyone attend. I mean, thank you so much. This is outstanding. In past elections, it's been hard to get all candidates to engage in these kinds of community forums. So I'm very thankful that you all did that. I'd also like to thank all the community partners one more time, Parent Councils United, South DeKalb Improvement Association, DeKalb Chamber of Commerce, League of Women Voters, and Leadership DeKalb. Thank you very much. And then the most important thing is, once again, early voting starts on Monday. So be sure that you tell everybody to vote. Go vote early or wait and go vote on July 22nd. But, okay, go vote early. That's fine. Go vote early. But be sure that you vote and encourage everyone you know to vote, not just in districts 3, 4, and 5, but throughout the county. We need to be out there on the 22nd. So thank you all, the audience, for coming and attending and submitting questions. And hopefully you'll all vote. Bye.
Thank you.